everyone, and welcome back. As you've seen from the title, we're once more doing something a bit different. We're doing an interview. I'm very excited to have the creators of the latest run of Barbarella, time of recording, with me, Blake Northcott and Anna Morozova. I did it right. I'm sure I did. So I'm happy to bring all of us together. It's great that Blake suggested that we could get everybody on, and I'm so thrilled to be able to always have the perspective of writer and artist, because you just have such different things going on creatively in that regard. So Barbarella is actually a very old work, and it's a comic first. I know some people are more familiar with the film that came out in 1968, and they're doing a remake of it that's supposed to be coming sometime in the future. But it first came out as a comic strip created by Jean-Claude Forest in 1962. And then there was a book collected of it in 1964 that came over to the States and created a scandal where it was erroneously labeled as the first pornographic comic, which it was most definitely not. But so it has quite the history. So how familiar were you with all of the history coming into it?
Incredible question. First of all, I just want to say thank you again for having us on. We are honored to be here on your show. When Dynamite first approached about this amazing opportunity to write Barbarella, obviously I was a fan of the movie. I'd heard of, seen Jane Fonda. Everyone has seen her incredible performance, and through almost like I'd say osmosis, the pop culture effects of the film have lasted for so long, and I would say impacted a lot of things outside of even comics, such as the incredible designs for the sets. They had the fashion that was influenced, the musical elements. I mean, we've all heard about Duran Duran being, he was one of the characters in the film, and then that ended up being the name for the band, which, to be able to influence music like that, that's incredible. I think that the fashion influences were one thing that really stood out to me as well. The retrofuturism element that was happening in these films during Europe at that time really played such an impact. And, there's the silver outfit that Jane Fonda is wearing in most of the posters was a Paco Rabanne inspired metallic dress. And it just created like ripple effects throughout fashion, and even affected things you might not think of, such as another one of my favorite films is The Fifth Element. And Jean-Paul Gaultier was so impressed by all the fashion that was done on this movie. It inspired him for The Fifth Element, which is considered one of the most iconic films to have incredible fashion designs. So anyway, that's one of the lasting effects, I would say, from this character that have just lingered for so long. And I was so excited to be a part of it. And yeah, so they came and just asked if I'd be interested in writing. And we've been collaborating behind the scenes for a while now. And having Anna on board is absolutely a dream. She's a dream to work with. I love her design. She has such an incredible fluid style to her artwork. So I'll let her speak about the art herself, but yeah, you can talk to that effect, Anna.
Well, I'm beyond excited to be involved in the project. Like, I agree with everything that Blake said above. It's interesting, but I first got familiar with the comics. Like, I came across the comic first. I can't say that I read it in much detail. It was mostly like examples of like some fantastic European artwork from the past century. And I've always enjoyed the European artwork, like European masters of comics craft and everything, and especially everything that came in the territory of space opera, space adventure, universe. Again, like retrofuturism, like to me was quite influential. Like I've always enjoyed the aesthetic of it. I only later discovered that there was a movie as well. Interestingly, I was familiar with the poster, but I just didn't know that the poster was for Barbarella specifically. But even that poster alone was so influential. Like I've seen at least several different remakes of it in pop culture. So when I received an email essentially saying that Dynamite are interested in getting me on board for this project, like to me it was like I was above and beyond happy, because it's such a dream gig to come by. And as I was saying, the fact that it's essentially space adventure, it opens up like so many opportunities, you know. It allows you to do like be very creative on so many different levels, so many different fronts. And even though, for instance, for the first issue, we're sticking to the classical outfit, the classical comics outfit to keep the character familiar, I still get a chance, you know, to design some other like outfits and appearances for certain shots, you know, and scenes. I also get a chance to design spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredible, you know, like they essentially the space for designing and for coming by like something unusual and the chance to look at like really interesting references and the chance to like you know like liven up the like really quirky interesting like transport design ideas, for instance. That is the gig, which is perfect playfield for that, I would say.
How was it approaching this character in 2024 now that she does have all of this legacy and has so many influences that have trickled down? So, how was it to come into that and then potentially be able to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're working on an existing character that has such a history behind them, you know, this beloved IP has been around for so long, and you want to make sure that you're always true to the character. But there is going inevitably to be evolution, right?
Hmm.
And new creators are going to try new things, which we've seen, and, you know, many different you know, everything from Star Wars and Star Trek and Predator, even the Terminator series, they have all done this where they've tried different things, kind of veered away a little bit from the original. But I feel like whenever you change the tone or the style, it can definitely freshen things up, but you can be in danger of like going too far off track. And I think the great thing about fans is they will always let you know when you're moving a little bit too far, maybe in one direction, and they want things to be more of the source material. So I feel like in this version of Barbarella, we're really sticking closer to her original character. We're infusing it with that retro futurism vibe that was so fun in the original series. And it's great because when we work together, it's a very collaborative process. And the incredible editor we have, Matt Idelson, is in close contact with the IP owner, who is Jean-Claude Forest. So we're actually getting input from him as well. And I feel like it's such a great kind of shifting gears, but also modernizing the story a little bit. But then I wanted to make sure that we have a lot of Easter eggs and things that the fans of the original series will be able to pick out and say, oh, I know what that's from, or I love that she incorporated this into it. So it's definitely a great place for people to jump on board if they haven't read anything in the past. I think this is a great place to come in and you'll enjoy the adventure.
I know that her creator very much viewed and views her as a character of empowerment and that kind of figure. So how was it incorporating that element now in a different era? Because what that means changes over time.
I think that, you know, one more thing that really excited me about this opportunity was the idea of they're going to be changing and having an evolution of the character into the film space, which I think is where a lot of the excitement originally came from. And having Sydney Sweeney on board to be producing as well as starring in the film, which Sony will be putting out, I think is such a great idea because she really, to me, embodies the whole character of Barbarella. She's got this great sense of, you know, confidence, but she's also got this element of comedy where she can make fun of herself, but also sexuality is there. She's just very self-deprecating, and I feel like she just embodies the whole vibe of Barbarella. So I was really excited to be a part of that in a small way, and I felt like, you know, having her now throughout our story, where she's going to be on kind of a linear version of her hero journey. We wanted it to be something fun, like really fun adventure that people could come on and say, oh, this is exactly what I was hoping for from the original. And I love that because in this version, well, I'll give you the little spiel about what we're doing. So she's been through so much in her previous adventures. So now she's decided to take Vix, which is like her little sidekick character, who goes on a vacation to a mysterious pleasure planet known as Planet V, where she soon discovers that the world is used for entertainment, where visitors are forced to perform for the entire galaxy to watch. So I felt like this was a little bit of a meta commentary on what we have going on, you know, in our world right now. It's so visual. We're so 24 hours a day being influenced by media around us. So I felt like this was a little bit of a spin on that. But we also have subplots where the series regulars will return, but I can't give away too much. That's just kind of what we have going on. So I hope that people will enjoy that.
And for you, Anna, what was your favorite part of updating some of the designs?
You know, and it's an interesting one from the artistic perspective, because, as I mentioned, like for me personally, I very much enjoy the comics of the 20th century. You know, like for instance, the legacy of British girls comics, the British horror comics, some incredible European talent in those. You know, newspaper comics. You know, there's like this volumes of some fantastic material. You know, like a depiction of like characters with them. However, they were produced in a certain technique at a certain time. Um, so me approaching it now, despite the influences that I have, I would still be using modern techniques. So of course the general look would be different. And I think that maybe even though like the influence is kind of visible, like the source material I would look at, I would like what would inspire me. Of course, the result is not going to end up like the girls' comics of the 70s, you know, it is going to look different. Simply because, like, for instance, because I'm doing both line art and color work, and to complement the tone of the story, I wanted this book to be quite poppy and colorful, you know, especially with this first issue, to make it stand out. In order to make this process quite smooth, I went for working digitally on it, even though like I sometimes prefer working traditionally, sometimes I prefer working digitally. So of course, this kind of feel of line art is more of nowadays, you know, and working digitally and not having to scan the original artwork also allows me to be a bit more brave with colors. So they're obviously going to be quite poppy, a bit more muted on some pages, but they will quite stand out on other pages.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting mix of both, I would say, because originally my inspiration comes from older kind of comics, you know, this kind of legacy material that is there, especially, you know, like with me having drawn for 2000 AD Rebellion quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I am quite influenced by the material, like of their background. But of course, I'm not doing a trace of what inspired me. Like, of course, it's a transformation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a certain like level of inspiration there. There's certain degree of my own vision of line art, of my own vision of like motion and comics, and of course we're adding modern techniques to it and the modern kind of like technology to it. So
Mm-hmm.
it will be a mix of everything. There will be some
Mm-hmm.
references from the past, and there will be add-ons from nowadays, I would say.
And I have to say that as I'm writing, I've really seen these incredible pages coming in from Anna, and I can feel her, like she said, her sense of movement and motion is so fluid, and it's so beautiful to see. And I really think that she has such a great style element. We were writing some panels where she would get to express the fun parts of designing new outfits. So I literally wrote a panel where I'm like, let's have Barbarella in 4 different, completely different outfits, and you can just go crazy and come up with these different looks for her, because I knew she would just kill that. And we had so much fun going back and forth trying to decide, you know, what she would do. And there's other areas where we have like she said, the technology, and we thought we need a new spaceship. And I just literally wrote, Anna, just create whatever you think is best for this scene. I know you're going to rock this. And she just went and created the most amazing thing. So it's so wonderful when you have that, like, the synergy between the artist and the writer. So I have a lot of faith in her and trust her to just do what she thinks is best. And it's a really great opportunity to work together.
What's your favorite part of that collaboration process? Is it that just seeing the surprising things that end up coming through with it?
Well, for me, it's seeing the artwork come back, because I'm always blown away. Like, I'm used to seeing more, I would say, unfinished, sketchy kind of outlines from artists that they work off of to have more of a complete finished version. And Anna just submits the most beautiful, like almost sculptural design, like just very completed art that is so stunning. And I love seeing that come back. It's very polished, and she has such a unique style. I'm really excited for everyone to see it.
What about for you, Anna?
Thank you. Well, I would say that generally, like, the opportunity to be working on the script with Blake, her scripts are incredible. And I love the tone of it. I love the story. I like that it's got like so many levels to it, and it allows me an interesting opportunity to experiment. So, for instance, even though it's an American publisher, we don't have to go exactly for the very American book look, because it's a European comic legacy. So, like, I get to get a mix of both, and the script just flows, and it's got like this rhythm to it. It can be a little bit quirky, it can be a bit funny, it can be more action, so there's like a lot to visualize, there's a lot to imagine, there's a lot to experiment with when it comes to like panels, layouts, designs. So it's incredible. It's got this fantastic pace. So I get to, like, to me, like, the working on like the first block of artwork, it was the fact, like, what excited me is that there's like I get to play with so many aspects of the story. As I was saying, it's exciting to be able to be designing characters, to be designing costumes, to be designing creatures, to be designing environments, to be designing transport. So it's not like with the Barbarella universe. You always get surprised. You get surprised by you get surprised as a reader when you read it, but you also get surprised as an artist when you go through the script. And you already like start visualizing all those images that get to your head. It's like, oh, like, I can do this, I can do that, and you can experiment forever. But of course, there are deadlines that come in place, so you have to like set certain designs in place as soon as possible. But it's the fact that, like, it's just constantly interesting. It's like you get a bit of everything in one project, which is fantastic.
And I have to say a funny story from last October, because we've been working on this behind the scenes for so long. And it's so interesting now how a lot of our collaborations happen over email and Zoom and all of these different mediums. You don't get to like meet the people sometimes in person. So last New York Comic Con, Anna and I both knew we were going to be there together. We've been working behind the scenes. We were so excited to meet each other because we knew the announcement would be coming out shortly. So we're running through Artist Alley, trying to find each other because both of our connections were terrible. And we'd organized to get together and take a photo because we were like, oh, it was her idea to like hold up a mock-up version of one of the comics. And then we thought, well, we'll just superimpose the actual cover here when it comes out, and we can show everyone this wonderful picture of us working together. And they put the picture out, and it's just me kind of going like this, like her, and they didn't put a picture of the comic there. So I was like, oh my gosh, this looks so silly. But that was the photo we got together, it was just great to meet though, and to know, when you've been working together behind the scenes, making those connections in real life is wonderful.
I have to say, I've seen that photo. I know the one you're talking about.
What's happening here?
It just looks like you're presenting her, so it doesn't look that awkward.
Oh my gosh. Sometimes the things you envision just don't happen, but you just have to roll with it, right? I'm my Vanna White era here.
It looks good though.
Like they say, like artists sometimes say, especially the artists who work traditionally, who prefer to do like artwork on paper, like, and they paint their comics. they go like, like digital is great because you get a chance to like get that polished result that you want. I'm quite guilty of it, like I like to sit and like just polish until I'm super happy with it. But they say, like on paper, sometimes you just get these happy accidents, and there's this with
Yeah.
photography, and promotion. It just like happens, and it's pretty fun. Yeah.
That was really fun, though.
Was there anything that went like that while you were working on this, like a direction that you thought you were going to go, but then it changed as you were going through it because you've been working on it for so long?
Actually, yes, because at the beginning they had mentioned they were thinking of maybe having it be part of a crowdfunding campaign for a part of it, and then we weren't sure if that was going to happen. So they kind of shifted gears, and it wasn't a one shot anymore. It became the full series. So this is part of working in publishing, as you know, things have a long lead time on them and plans can change, and you just have to be really
Flexible.
Yes, very flexible, very open to, okay, whatever works best for the series, we'll do that. And I'm really lucky because Anna was very flexible in kind of repositioning things that we might have needed to do and to make the story work the way we wanted. And this, I mean, my first conversations about the series, I think, started in 2022. So it's been a long process to get to where we are now. And the first issue won't be out until October. So it's exciting to work on something, and a lot of the time you have things behind the scenes you can't talk about, and it's so frustrating because you want to shout it from the rooftops. But I'm glad that we can talk about it now.
Do you find that that ever puts a distance between you and the work, the fact that it comes out so much later than you've been working on it?
I don't know about Anna, but for me, sometimes it does. But I'm always kind of reworking things and going back. Sometimes it's good, I find, as a writer, to take a step away from the work, and then you come back to it, and then you'll have a new idea or a new inspiration. And having that revision editing process is very ongoing. And also the lettering script is another part of the process. So usually I've taken a little bit of a break from it, and then I get the lettering script back, and that is a really good time to kind of go through, make any changes. So I feel like it's almost like a continual shift and a piece of art that is continually changing along the way, right? It's an evolution process. So and also I want to make sure that when the art comes back, that I'm never covering up any of Anna's beautiful artwork with too many word balloons or anything. So I always try to edit it down as much as possible. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Anna?
Well, it's interesting, because when you start on a project, you're working through it, artwork, there are like certain artistic challenges, there are like ups and downs. Sometimes you like catch this absolute flow when you're like, you can like be sitting potentially, like 2 days in a row with no sleep, just drawing away, feeling like, I've got this. And then there will be like a downtime when you're like, actually, like what I did in those like 2 days, I could have done it completely differently. So you can kind of sometimes kind of come back and forth, but at some point the artwork needs to be locked down. It needs to be done to the best ability of an artist at that particular time. And interestingly, in this project, when, as Blake mentioned, the plans did change a little bit, we decided to break the first bigger issue down into two separate issues. I had to do some supplemental material just to add up a little bit. So I had to go back to what was done like a few months back. I had to go through it, and I had to like add those like additional pages, additional artwork. And it's interesting how I assess it after some time passed. And I'm thinking, actually, a little bit of like color of this palette, a little bit of this different technique would maybe add more to this book. And it's just in the first particular issue, I was pretty happy with the supplemental pages I did, because I still discovered maybe a couple of new brushes here and there, and I thought, that would be a nice addition. Or I looked at the palette that I chose for the first book, and I thought, I think like this new color would add a bit more to the general picture. So it's been pretty useful. It was quite reflective. Yeah, I hope that it works, and I hope the readers enjoy it when they see it,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm personally happy with those extra pages that I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I probably will be critical of them in 3 months' time or so, but now I'm pretty proud. So we'll keep that on the record here.
We were talking a bit earlier about how there's all this influence from the European comics. So, what would you say would be the biggest difference between American comics and European comics? Because I know not everybody reads both or is as familiar that there's an entirely different, really just flavor genre out there of comics.
But they're so different. Again, like European comics market is it's so large and so vast and so diverse. I would say, like, generally speaking, European market allows a bit more fluidity to the lifestyle. So they allow a bit more personality of the artist to show through. I would say that maybe American comics, they do have a bit more of a standard. Like they do generally aim for, like, not necessarily all the time, but generally speaking, they have their vision of how they would like things to be. And then you also have British market with 2000 AD in particular, which is interestingly, I wouldn't say it's kind of the balance of both worlds, but again, you can get comics there, you can get strips that look quite close to American market, and you can get comics that are completely, punk rock, absolutely alternative vision. When I'm referencing like the comics that I'm, for instance, influenced by, like, especially the comics, like the 70s, 80s, 60s. As I said, there was a completely different technique of delivering them. It was different page layouts for sure,
Mm-hmm.
and modern storytelling wouldn't necessarily allow it, and the format wouldn't necessarily allow it, because, like, often the artwork would be produced on huge canvases, not necessarily like A3 paper, so you get pretty much bigger, higher resolution to work with, so you can be adding more details. And even though, like, I like working traditionally, I wouldn't necessarily choose this technique for the first book on the American market. So I try to keep that balance of both. Like, I did go for, like, I did get inspired by a lot of, like, character design with facial expressions and the fluidity of, like, figures and motion, fluidity of backgrounds.
What about for you, Blake?
Well, I mean, I'd have to refer to Anne on this since she's the European expertise here. But I would just want to throw in, I mean, I just did a signing in Paris, and that was really interesting to me. I've never done one in Europe before. So I was at Album Comics, and I was so blown away by, there was almost like a three-way mixture of the consumer between these different trades with the paperbacks. You have the trade paperbacks from the US market, the manga, and the traditional French, les bandes dessinées, like Asterix and Obelix. They're all very well known there. And at least in France, where I was, they are so educated. And they don't mind reading comics also in English. So their native comics are, I would say, more geared towards their own sense of, like, history and culture, but they also really embrace American and Japanese storytelling as part of their repertoire that they have in the stores. So I thought that was really interesting to see.
Did either of you get the chance to read the original one in French? I know I haven't, unfortunately. I want to.
I got to read the original, but it was the original version, but translated into English.
Mm-hmm.
I do speak some French, so I started to try to read it in French, but I felt like I didn't want to miss any of the subtlety of it. So I was like, I'm going to read the translated, which was really interesting. It was wonderful to see, and also watching the movie, and just reading about how, like I said, the influence throughout pop culture. I think it's just fantastic. I love that element of it.
You've done like a fair amount of science fiction writing. What's your favorite thing about working in that genre?
I do gravitate. I love science fiction. I've written a lot, I would say, where I feel like the element of storytelling is what always just gets me, because I feel like there's so many different human levels that we go through. Like, people have their personal lives and their social life and, their family life. And I feel like when you're writing at a certain level, it's really great to be able to tap into these different layers that people have. And sometimes you're able to, I always try to put my own vulnerabilities and be very honest in the characters that I'm creating or trying to tell the stories, because I feel like there's a certain amount of, I want to say, like a universal truth I feel like you can kind of tap into. And when you read something and you're just like, oh, I really get what this character is doing or saying, or I've been there, I've been through that experience, maybe not the
Mhm.
exact one that I'm reading, but something similar. And you can kind of gravitate towards that character. So I feel like, if you're doing, like you mentioned in science fiction, I feel like the elements that really I'm drawn to are, there's always a grounded element of the human side of the story, but then the way you can just get lost in the world building aspects is so fun. Like the futuristic element with Barbarella, and like Anna was saying, like designing characters and costumes, and the method of transportation and all these different things. Typically, when you're writing other stories, that's already set and you're working within a set universe. So
Mhm.
have your mind just be completely blown open and say, I can just do anything I want here. I can be so creative. It's a very liberating experience.
Mhm.
It puts your mindset in a different zone, I would say, to be able to tap into all of that.
Was there anything that either of you put forward that was deemed too much? It was like, no, that's too far. You got to dial it back, or were they pretty receptive to everything?
Oh, goodness. So far, I think they've been very receptive to everything. You have to remember the original ones did have a lot of crazy stuff going on as
Yes.
well. So it would be difficult to kind of top some of that. So I feel like, we did get notes back sometimes, like our editor is wonderful, Matt Idelson, and he will say, I feel like we should lean towards this, or is there a way we can shift this around for, to allow for another element? But most of the time they're very open to the ideas that we've had, which is great. It's really wonderful to have such a communicative rapport with your editor and artist, to go back and forth like that. I don't know if you've received any maybe different notes on the artwork, Anna, but everything I've seen has been
Hmm.
fantastic.
Like I have to say that the experience been amazing in general because it's so friendly, it's so great. I'm not gonna lie, I did feel, of course, I did feel quite a bit of pressure starting on the book because it's a legacy character. It's an unusual character, there's like a lot of aspects to her when it comes to even artistic influence, like you can do a lot there creatively. I did feel a bit of pressure because of the fact that this is pretty much my first big project for American market because I'm mostly known in the UK market. So, like approaching things, of course, at the start, I was wary and I thought that maybe in certain aspects, I maybe dialed myself back a bit, even just to make sure that I'm on the right track. But then when I started receiving feedback, I realized that like the team was very happy with what they're seeing, and it of course gave me like confidence to be a bit more brave with like the new pages that were coming in, and it's because of like an ongoing project it's only going to go further and further and further. You can only be
Mhm.
adding and adding things, and you can become more and more confident. And for instance, with myself, like I would always be drawn to drawing characters, and I would be quite doubtful on my abilities to be drawing, like for instance, transport. But my first ever comic I did with that was related to kind of space opera adventure. It did have a lot of transportation design in it. This is when I first discovered that actually, if you treat transport like characters, you are capable of having a lot of fun with it. And
Mhm.
it gave this, it kind of unlocked the skill, if you will, unlocked the achievement, and I started having like absolutely great fun with it. And with the first book, like I think that was like that's been quite a great playground, and I was so happy to see that the editorial and like essentially, let's say like the control board, they were really like approving of what we were seeing. So it only gave me more and more confidence. So hopefully, as the project goes on, I will be able to level it up even more and bring more creative choices. Maybe
Hmm.
not doubt myself on certain aspects, but just to go like, like we'll try this. Um, if they want changes, that is fine. But if it plays out, if it works out, then even better, because the universe is just too good to miss out on opportunities to create something really fun.
Hmm. So how far into it are you two now? Like how many issues deep are you, or are you complete with it?
Yeah, we're working on the fourth issue right now, I believe. And I mean, I just wanted to address here, Anna. I feel like what she's saying too is there always is going to be a little bit of this feeling in the back of your mind. I think no matter who you are, if you're working on somebody else's character, this kind of imposter syndrome or lack of confidence that you're like, can I really handle this? And I just want you to know, like, we have been so blown away by your art. We never doubted for a second, a single moment, that you were the absolute right person for this assignment, because you're just wonderful at every panel. I've been blown away. So I hope you feel confident drawing her, because we are loving everything you're doing. And I mean, even, as a writer, I can understand this feeling though, because the characters that you write that aren't your own, they have so much backstory to them, and you want to do them justice. You want the fans to feel like, oh, that was a great, interpretation of the character, and love what you're doing. But there is a lot of that feeling, when you go into it, of, oh, I hope I can do this, I hope I can handle it. And I feel like the amount of support that we've had from Dynamite has been incredible, and our editors have been incredible. But I understand that feeling, because I mean, I worked on Catwoman previously, and that feeling was there and present. And I understand, stepping into such an iconic history of a character, you always want to do them justice. So it's like you're excited to work on it, but there is that pressure feeling. So it's a lot to live up to, but I just love what you're doing. So I don't want you to feel like that at all, because we love working together, and I'm so happy with the way it's turning out.
Thank you, Blake. I really appreciate it. Honestly, it means a lot. And yeah, like as I was saying, as it keeps going, like the project develops and develops, you realize that you're becoming more and more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's interesting because essentially only your imagination is your limit. With comics, you can bring creativity to like incredible levels, and it's sometimes frustrating to realize that you're not even near like the first levels of those limits, because you can always like turn it up and turn it up and turn it up and turn it up. And this is why editorial matters, because they will always remind you of the deadlines, and they will say this needs to go to the bookshelves, But yeah, I'm very excited, very excited.
No, I think people will be excited to take a look at it because there is so much fondness for this character. And I remember when the announcement was coming out that they were remaking it, that this people were like, "Oh my goodness!" And you saw this resurgence of fondness that people have for it. So I think it's great that there's going to be just more Barbarella out there, because there's something about the character that there's an endurance there, because at the core the adventures are just so fun, and they are so open because they allow you so much space to play around, because they're not quite as rigid as sometimes you can find with some of the older stories. Like some of that lack of definition allows a lot of freedom to play with all of
Yes.
those stories. So did you feel in any areas that you had to tighten anything up, or
Well, like you're saying, Sasha, that's exactly what it is. When you have this sense of freedom with the character, and I mean, the genre is liberating, the character is very liberated, and it's interesting because the editors, like I haven't ever written a character like this who was so, let's say, sexual in her mindset as well. But they were like, no, like sex it up, like make it your own. Like they were very like, go for it. So getting that kind of feedback was, all right, I'm going for it. So you asked for this, so this is what you're getting. And but it is also back to the source material, right? So, but the way she kind of expresses herself, what happens around her, it's almost a dreamlike quality, which I'm having a really good time. It's like this non-directional sort of storytelling, which is a little bit different. And I love that I did tighten it up a little bit. I do put her on her own sort of hero journey, and but I wanted to have that little bit of like an Alice in Wonderland dreamlike quality-esque to it as well, because that's kind of how I took away from the original, and I wanted to maintain that feeling. That's sort of her brand, and you want to have that feeling when people read it. Oh yes, I understand. This is very similar to the original, but I didn't want to change it too drastically.
How was it working with that sexual element? Because it's quite prominent, especially in the original strip. So how was that, bringing that element of it forward, and how much could you bring forward?
I mean, I typically, like my other previous writing doesn't have a lot of that in it. This, I would say, is my first time writing this heavily influenced type of character. It's true for the character, so I feel quite confident doing it. But it's more overt than I've ever done before. So I feel like it's sort of sprinkled throughout, and it's all essential to her journey. So it's not just like gratuitous, or do you know what I want to say? Like it's part of her hero journey is to explore these parts of herself. So it's not it's not inorganic to the story, is what I'm trying to say. And she still has that 60s kind of liberated vibe, which I love. And I think that it's the kind of like that free love mentality. And I just feel like it just reminds me of like a fun journey where she doesn't take herself too seriously. So in terms of sex either, it's part of her self-expression. And I really like that about her. She's very, in my way, when I look at her that way, she's very empowered. So it's great. I'm having fun. It's just a little bit more of that European shade to her, and I'm tapping into my European roots. And with Anna along for the ride, our European artist, so we have that sensibility about it.
Did you have to do any tying in to the film at all, or was it able to just kind of exist on its own?
No, it's not tied into the film. It exists on its own, and it's more within. So Dynamite is the one in control of the comic.
Yes, they've had it since 2017, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting because when we first started working on this and talking about it way back, like I said, 2022, Sydney Sweeney hadn't been attached to it yet, I don't think, and there wasn't as much hype surrounding the character. So it's been a very interesting process to see over the past couple of years as we've been developing this. Well, the news is coming out where Sydney Sweeney is going to be attached, and Sony is going to pick it up, and I think it's created a lot of excitement behind the scenes for us just to watch. Oh wow, this is turning into be something that people are getting excited about. And I think when the announcement came out, that's why it was also exciting, because it somehow got linked to the movie side, and we had been working on it behind the scenes for so long. And if it's helping to propel the movie in any way, well, then that's great. But the continuity, though, is definitely separate from the film. And we definitely have existing characters that are going to be returning from the originals, and callbacks to her previous adventures and everything. But I feel like this is a really good, like I said, good jumping in point for new readers, because you don't have to know all the lore and all the backstory to enjoy it. So plus, Dynamite is doing a great job. They have all of these really cool covers coming out, like variant covers and foil covers. I'm so excited to see this foil cover. I just love that they're really getting behind it. So I'm excited for that.
No, I like to keep up with Dynamite's covers because they always do a lot of fun ones for each issue. And I figured for a character like this, it would also be extra fun because you have so many outfits and the like to play with when it comes to her.
They have, I think Rachel Holland did a really cool cosplay cover as well. There's foil covers, like I mentioned. I forget, they showed a list of all of them coming out. There's something like 15 different ones for the launch, for the kickoff. So I'm really excited to see when it comes out.
How has the feedback that you've been receiving, like in the build up to it, been so far?
Oh, so positive. Well, from what I've seen, people are very intrigued, very excited. I've been getting a chance to travel a little bit, and just today I'm actually back from a European show. I'm just back from Montenegro this afternoon, and we've had some incredible European fan crowd there, and they were asking about the projects we're working on, and like the ones who've been familiar with my work. There was like certainly quite a group from France, and they were beyond excited about Barbarella. I asked them, I was like, "Are you aware of this comic?" And they were like, "Absolutely, we're French, of course we are aware of this comic." Interestingly, like when I would mention it in some events, and just like when the news got officially out, and it's interesting, like to see like people's like very genuine interest in it, being like, "Barbarella, no way." I love when we're like so excited, like is it going to be close to the original or is it going to be something completely alternative? Pretty much like what we've discussed previously. So I can see that the legacy is there. I can see that the character is. People wait for her. People wait for her appearance. Of course, the movie gets brought up a lot. So generally, it just gives me more and more kind of boost and confidence. That's definitely like an amazing property to be working on. Like people have genuine, sincere interest for it.
And I just wanted to say, when the original announcement came out for the series, there was almost like a viral moment that happened because I think that MSN News is the one who reported on it, and then other outlets picked it up, and they were wanting to know if the Sydney Sweeney film or what they're producing as the film would be based on our run or connected to our run. I think they assumed because we were announcing the series now, is this like the kickoff to the movie or something? So people kind of assumed it would be linked to it. Also, maybe because Sydney and I shared the same agent. We're both with Paradigm Agency. So, but who knows if there's synergy between the two? I mean, I think they could use whatever they want in their film, but that would be really cool. But I haven't heard anything specific about that.
Well, I wanted to thank both of you for your time to come and discuss this with me. I think it's going to be a really exciting project, and I think people are going to be really interested when they get the chance to see it, both people who are fans of the older stuff and the newer Dynamite run, and just maybe people who are new to her in general, because she's a really fun character to get to know.
Oh, definitely. And I appreciate you having us on today. Thank you so much. And I hope that your show continues to grow. And I love that you have this space set up within comics for us to be able to come and chat. And I appreciate it so much. And yeah, I hope everyone, if you pick it up, then tag us online and let us know what you think, because we can't wait to hear.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, Sasha. It's been wonderful to chat with you. And I'm so looking forward for the launch of the project. And I cannot wait to hear what the readers think. And I hope they like it. I hope they like it, because I'm beyond proud, beyond excited to be working on this, with Blake, to be working on this with Dynamite. It's been a wonderful collaborative effort, and we're collaborative effort to bring the readers joy. So,
yes.
No, and thank you for coming on and sharing it with everyone.
Of course.
Fantastic, Sasha. Thank you.
Thanks so much to everybody who made it to the end, and for Blake and Anna for joining me. The first issue of Barbarella is out October 2nd, 2024. Be sure to check it out. As always, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe. We'll have more videos as always coming again soon. Bye-bye.